If Joe Biden is elected President of the United States, Americans are going to pay much higher taxes if they're high earners or high net worth individuals. And so it's important, if you're one of those people, to understand exactly what is in Joe Biden's tax plan, whether you're living in the United States or whether you're taking my advice and living overseas to reduce your taxes and have a freer life. So let's break down the tax plan. Before I go into all the notes I have on Joe Biden's tax plan for entrepreneurs, high earners, high net worth individuals, as a former American, my perspective on this is whomever gets elected, it is not going to make a world of difference. Now, I know that partisan people, I know that people who are very much into politics, who are on one side or the other, say it's going to make a huge difference. But from the perspective of taxes, I look at this and say 39.6% tax bracket, 35, 37% tax bracket. It does not make a world of difference. The biggest savings, the biggest way you can reduce your tax bill is moving outside of your country if it's a high tax country. And the other problem is you've got ballooning national debt, you've got deficits that are crazy. And what you're really seeing during this whole coronavirus situation is politicians coming out of the woodwork, which are pushing people like Joe Biden, who have been considered kind of moderate, further to the left, more giving of money, more stimulus, more wealth redistribution. That's not going to change regardless of who's elected. But let's go through Joe Biden's tax plan. This is courtesy of the Tax Foundation. And the long story short is, number one, if you have wealth, bad news. That's more the liberal camp, where they're going to start putting a wealth tax. People like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have said they want a wealth tax on people with 8-figure net worths and up. But here's Joe Biden's tax plan. If you earn over $400K, bad news. Incomes, number one, incomes over $400,000 will now be subject to Social Security tax on the overage. So if you're self-employed, 12.4% from $400,000 up to infinity. I've been hearing this for the last almost 2 decades. We have to take the cap off Social Security. It's the only way to make the program solvent. Now imagine this. You make $1 million a year. Right now you pay Social Security on the first roughly $137, and it goes up a little bit every year. Because when you retire, you don't get an unlimited benefits check, right? I worked for about 10 or 11, 12 years in the United States. I'm getting $1,100 when I retire at 67 years old. If I were to keep working and be making the money that I'm making, they wouldn't send me 10 grand, 20 grand a month. They would send me whatever the cap is. And so they're just going to basically take your money. You're never going to get it back, because on your $1 million now, you're going to pay on the 137, but then you're going to pay from 400 to $1 million. So $600,000 is now opened up if you're self-employed to 12.4% tax. That's almost $75,000 extra in extra tax for money that you'll never see again. $74,400. Step two, you're thinking, well, I can deduct that as a business expense. Deductions are going to be limited, and they're going to have a maximum bracket of 28%. So if your tax bracket is higher, he proposes putting tax brackets back at least to 39.6%. So you're going to be losing out on the difference in tax deduction. You're not going to have as many deductions or as much deductibility. Number three, as I said, the top tax bracket for individuals going back up to nearly 40%. Of course, that's on top of what you pay in California, what you pay in New York, what you pay in whatever city you live in, if those apply to you, what you pay to your county, in addition to property taxes. In addition to all of that, I saw something on CNBC recently that even under the current top tax bracket, which is a little bit lower, in California with what they're doing, you could be paying up to 54% of your income in taxes if you have a business, if you're an entrepreneur. You're working for 46 cents on the dollar, and he wants to make it worse. Number four, businesses will now be subject to a minimum tax rate if they aren't paying enough. Number five, here's the big one. Capital gains will be taxed as ordinary income. No more 15, no more 20, no more Medicare, none of that. Ordinary income. You're a high earner, 39.6%. Get ready to pay. Now, what's that going to happen? What's that going to do to the economy and people making investments? We'll have to see. But if you have capital gains, that could be stocks, that could be real estate, it could be the sale of a business. We work with a lot of folks who are building businesses that have, $2 million, $5 million valuations right now, and they're working towards a $50 million valuation. Imagine you sell your business for $50 million and they take 20 of it. Gone. Everything you've worked so hard for. So capital gains is going to go up. And in my world, the biggest hit's going to be on people selling the businesses they've built. Now let's go into the offshore stuff. Now those things so far apply to any American citizen, because as you know, Americans are basically the only people for now that have to pay taxes no matter where they live in the world. More countries are slowly starting to implement those policies, whether it's China, potentially South Africa, Canada has talked about it, but right now, for all intents and purposes, the US, they follow you everywhere you go. So if you're an American and you move overseas and you build your business, and you build up an entire business in Singapore and sell it, you're still subject for capital gains tax, even though Singapore doesn't have a capital gains tax. You are subject to pay to the United States that 39.6% on selling your business or on the money you made investing in stocks until you choose to renounce your citizenship or until you move to Puerto Rico. Step number 6, the tax rate on what's called GILTI. This was what was put in under the recent tax changes, where if you are overseas and you are basically going where you're treated best with your money, they said, all right, you can pay in the low double digits. Joe Biden wants to increase basically the threshold up to 21%. He's going to double it, meaning that if you're offshore, you could be potentially paying more. Okay, and so basically, it's going to not only raise your taxes domestically, it potentially means that you're going to have fewer options if you go offshore. Now, offshore will still be substantially cheaper than domestic, but the price of everything is going to go up. Compliance may also go up. And what's going to happen on the other side? Well, if you want to have children, you're going to get $8,000 tax credit. Many families who will get that are already paying zero. Retired citizens with part-time jobs are going to get free extra money from the government. Oh, and by the way, the Tax Foundation says an estimated 500,000 U.S. jobs will be lost, which means more misery and more people asking for more money, meaning eventually you'll be paying higher taxes, and not even to put a dent in the national debt. That's what they always say. We're going to be responsible and put a dent in the debt. No, they're not. They're just going to give money to all the other people whose votes they will buy, half of whom don't even pay taxes right now on the federal level. So let's break that down. One of the cool things about being overseas is if you have a foreign company as an American and you work for that foreign company, you have some flexibility with Social Security and Medicare tax, because people who work for foreign companies don't pay the U.S. Social Security and Medicare. Now again, who knows what they could do in the future to open that wide open and make people pay their fair share, but for now, that's an opportunity. Going offshore allows you to save some of that money, and so going overseas could be even more appealing now for entrepreneurs who are paying at the self-employed rate. What's not going to change is the capital gains tax. So if you are, again, engaging in normal capital gains earning activity, or if you're planning on building a big asset and selling it, it's going to be more expensive if Joe Biden and his cronies have their way. And obviously, again, he's not the most progressive on these issues. He is perhaps adopting some of the progressive platforms, but even in the Obama years, $400,000 was the magic number, which you become part of the evil rich, right? Not a lot of money, especially in some places like New York, California, etc., but you are going to be lumped in as the evil rich. Why? Because it's politically possible. And so what I see is this is just another reason to have an insurance policy. Now, people have commented in the past, there's no way Joe Biden's going to win. Well, you know what? When I started driving, I figured there was no way I was going to drive my car off the side of the road. I still bought car insurance. And so I think that, having a home somewhere else, probably having a second passport somewhere else, certainly looking at moving your business overseas if you're in the United States, Puerto Rico is an option, or you could go offshore to a tax haven. We've got plenty of videos on how to move to a tax haven here on our YouTube channel. I would start looking at setting those things up, because taxes are only going to go up. How do you think they're going to pay for all these trillions of dollars they've been creating? How do you think they're going to pay for all the handouts? How do you think they're going to pay for everyone to be on unemployment for the rest of their lives? And we can discuss whether those policies are good or bad, but if you're wealthy, they simply are. And politicians are going to eventually come for your money. Whether it's Joe Biden now or whether it's someone else in the future, you can kick the can down the road, but I think you should be prepared, because one thing that I'm hearing from in this year of chaos is I've got a lot more high net worth people coming to me who perhaps don't want to actually leave their country. They don't want to leave Canada, the US, Australia, but they want to be prepared. And what they're saying is, for example, AOC in the United States is saying, let's have a wealth tax on $50 million up to $1 billion. There'll be different levels. And I had a gentleman say, I don't have $50 million, Andrew, but I have about $18 million. And they said, it's like the camel's nose under the tent. Eventually, 50 million won't be enough. They won't raise enough money from that. So then they'll go down to 20, and then it'll be 10, and eventually it'll just kind of creep further and further and further. Once you have a wealth tax, you'll have a wealth tax. The same way back over 100 years ago, they introduced an income tax at 3%. Now it's 13 times that. And so it's only a matter of time before this stuff happens. Joe Biden is putting up this tax plan. Whether he wins this year or whether in 2024 someone of his ilk wins, this is the kind of stuff that they want to do. And so I think having an insurance policy, if not an active, what I call plan A, of actually moving your business overseas before they come up with the next harebrained scheme, I think it's a good idea. When I left the United States, I was frustrated with a number of things. I didn't feel like I belonged there. And what I discovered was, after the fact, I realized that I've saved myself whatever new stuff they want to come up with. I never entirely thought of that at the time when I was leaving the US, but now I realize I've basically opted out of whatever new thing they decide to come up with to tax and confiscate your wealth. I suggest you look at your options. It could be, again, as simple as protecting some of your money overseas. It could be investing in foreign markets. It could be buying non-reportable offshore assets like precious metals or real estate. It could be moving your business overseas, or at least a part of it overseas. You've got an increasing number of people who run big global businesses where they're not going to leave the US, but they have business partners, and part of the business can be overseas, and they can enjoy some benefits. And we're talking about how they can do that. Moving the business overseas, and potentially, physically moving yourself, whether it's to Puerto Rico, which has tax rates in the single digits, as low as 0 on capital gains, whether it's moving overseas to a tax haven, whether it could be Dubai, Monaco, Panama, or Vanuatu, or any number of other places in between. And possibly also having a second passport, so that if one day the United States says all of our citizens have to give us 10% of their wealth, you have the option to decide whether you want to participate, and you have the ability to flip that switch. That's what we're helping people here with. This is what I think is prudent when I see the kind of stuff that they're talking about. So there it is. There's Joe Biden's tax plan. What are your thoughts? Is he going to win? Leave a comment below. What do you think about this tax plan? What are the pros? What are the cons? How would you react? Leave a comment below. I want to hear what you think about this and how you plan on reacting. How can Nomad Capitalists help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become